Hey, welcome to the Unlock Podcast. We are three business owners from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, Minnesota, and North Carolina, and we have a mission to share some of the insights that we've learned through running and operating businesses, and that's the purpose of the Unlock Podcast. I'm Chad Lingefeld.
I'm Tony Hokinson.
Hey, I'm Lars Johnson.
We're live in Orlando, where we might get some random visitors today. We'll see how this goes. Lars?
Good job,
talk
Tom.
a little bit about...
You nailed that. That was awesome.
That was good.
Good job.
That was one of our
we
best intros
We
ever.
didn't even have to practice it.
Yeah, that was good.
So,
Sorry,
nice.
Tone, you were saying.
You were going to start talking to us a little bit about technology in our industry and automation.
Technology and automation in our industry. Right, so we're talking about industry trends today, right? Talking about some of the trends that are impacting the industry.
We thought it would be ideal, since we're at an industry conference, to sit down and talk about things that are affecting our businesses relating to the industry.
Gotcha. Then, yeah, I'd definitely say number one is the need for business to automate process. One of the biggest challenges we have as a company is, once you hit a critical mass, I'm going to say it's about 15 or so people, you start hiring in a 1-to-1 ratio. One is a revenue creator.
Yep.
Generally speaking, a technician or somebody in the field making money, and then you'll need one support person to support them, whether that's answering the phone, whether that's purchasing, warehousing, things like that. And what happens is your wages as a percent of revenue just continues to escalate. And while it's mandatory for scale and growth,
yeah,
you guys are probably in the same position where, when you have 40 or 50 people, you're probably at 1-to-1 technical people in the field versus one administrator, somewhere close to that ratio. So, utilizing technology, looking at ways to automate a lot of the processes, self-dispatching would be one, automating phone calls, routing, those kind of software utilizations that we can have. AI is a huge one. It's a big buzzword right now, so I'm not going to get down that path exactly, but that has to be the biggest focus of business owners, is how do we move more of our resources towards revenue generating staff and team members and away from that administration side.
What are you doing in your business to automate it?
We're a little unique in, just with the size and the scale of our company relative to most of the small businesses in the industry. So we actually have developers on staff. We have 4 app developers on staff. So we develop our own mobile app internally. We have guys that work with an SQL database all the time and integrate a bunch of softwares, because, I'm going to guess if, anyone listening to this and they think about how many different softwares they use in a given day, it's probably 15 or 20 would be my guess, and it's a mess. So we've invested in actual developers rather than outsourcing, because we just have a constant need to integrate between different softwares.
Well, there's a lot of different software out there, and I think we live in a bubble where we understand cloud technology, we understand...
That's America in general.
Integration, right? But that's not common across the small business realm. There's still a lot of businesses that have not innovated or progressed in their technology stack, as it were. They might be on older versions of their operating systems. They may be using software-based systems that they don't have cloud backup, and they can have a major disruption. So when we say automation, I think a lot of times the conversation gets so high level of, I've got to do all this high level integration, but really automation can start with automatic backups of your data, baseline. And when you say data, estimates, quotes, financials. And if you're not doing that right now, with a lot of the ransomware and malware things out there, you can have massive disruption in your specific business that, one, is costly, but also time intensive, because you haven't created automations in just the simplest form. So when I hear automating processes, I think my mind automatically goes to what you're talking about, integrating multiple systems to simplify your life. But let's just think about it also in the terms of simplicity. How are you utilizing real automation in your business processes just for basic day-to-day things?
Like even at the most micro level, the first thing to do, is a big change, especially, guys like us, I know we're always on the move. Always got things, always have 5,000 browsers open on your computer,
Yep.
these kind of things. So being able to do everything from the phone,
Yeah.
super important. And having a traditional software on your computer, it's really hard to have a Windows-based software application on your phone. So moving anything to the cloud. But
I would start by saying at least make sure you're using software. I know like you guys have been using a cloud software for over 20 years.
Sure.
We didn't start using dispatching software until like the last 10 years, but there are still plenty of businesses out there that are still using pen and paper, and the lack of flexibility that has for you. If we walked into an HVAC company a year ago, and they had everything still paper invoices, paper service tickets. I mean, this was a multi-million-dollar HVAC company. Yeah. Like, how easy is that to disrupt when someone has the inefficiency of still carrying around pen and paper? So make sure you're doing whatever you can to at least start using some form of software. At this point, it should definitely be a cloud-based software, but do something to make sure that you're not falling even more behind.
I think it's important. You started down this path when we first stepping up this topic around the ratio of revenue generation to support staff. And I think this was one thing that I missed out early on when I was looking at projections. I underestimated the amount of people it was going to take to resource and support our revenue generating field staff. Automations help with that. So to your point, dispatching software, so someone's not having to manually process a lot of invoices and paper, moving it back and forth. They can be focused on more productive.
Right. We're not talking about reducing headcount.
Correct. You're just getting them on the more productive activities.
Focusing on generating revenue and profit. Right. And I would suggest first step, because that's, at a micro level, first step, Google Drive.
Google Drive,
Dropbox, or most people probably use Microsoft products. Office 365, OneDrive. Those are just simple, relatively cost-effective cloud things that you can pull everything up on your phone.
Yep.
And that should be like step one.
Yeah, and you mentioned that one-to-one ratio. That's something that I've historically heard repetitively in the locksmithing industry, and I think that's something that locksmiths need to challenge themselves on. When I've talked to people in other industries, they're looking for a 2-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio of revenue-generating people to non-revenue-generating people. Like, challenge yourself. See what you can do. What does this look like? How can you use automation to help with that? Because like you said, the more revenue-generating employees you have as a proportion of non-revenue-generating, the more successful your business is going to be.
Right. I toured, and we'll kind of need to move on to our next topic, but I toured an HVAC company, very large, 500 technicians. To your point.
Hopefully they weren't on pen and paper still.
They weren't on pen and paper, and they were using technology and AI and some just automation tactics to dispatch 500 technicians with 3 dispatchers.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you talk about ratios changing and getting better with technology, that's what is possible if you have the systems and processes put in place first.
Yeah. Zapier's the last thing I'll say. Have a look at it. It's pretty handy for automating processes. Just you can Google it and have a look at it.
And just for clarification and translation, process or process, I think we're saying the same thing.
One of them's English, one of them's American.
Okay. So the other kind of topic around trends in our industry is biometrics. And this, let's just say, this is not a new trend. This has been around for a long time. People have been talking about fingerprint readers, facial recognition, all that optic.
Eyeball.
Yeah,
eyeball looking.
Whatever. And I think that it's had different peaks throughout the last decade or so. Where we're seeing it now is better, faster facial recognition.
Yeah.
You see companies like Google, Facebook, Apple using facial recognition for credentialing. And we've become very accustomed to it. The other element is obviously NFC or mobile wallet credentials. Those are things that are very much tied to your personal identity. You're not going to hand somebody your phone and let them carry it. That's a personal device for you, so it's as close to biometrics as anything. Now, some of the interesting components around that application, right? So it's going to continue to drive conversation, but it comes back down to what are people actually comfortable with implementing? What is the least complicated thing to be able to implement, and that's not going to overall inhibit the user experience? And I think the biggest thing right now that I've seen is facial recognition for that kind of fluid access, fluid pass through a door, through an opening, and then obviously NFC on the mobile credential. Having the ability to tie that to your mobile credential and not have to carry any or distribute credentials. physical credentials, one, are costly to manage. You have to have, go back to our first topic about process automation. You got to have somebody physically hand that credential over, mail it, ship it, whatever. You have a possibility to get that credential lost or stolen or compromised in that transaction. Mobile credential can be electronically delivered and electronically removed. That, and then facial recognition, the ability for you to effectively log your identity inside of a system and an infrastructure, be able to share that identity and be able to access an opening, have permission granted well before you need to access that opening, just walk up and it identifies you, and the speed by which it does that. The basic application that I've seen in this, I'm just kind of crossing technologies here, on Google Photos, the facial recognition on Google Photos and the progression. I've got an 8-year-old son, almost 8-year-old son, and his baby picture when he was an infant is identified as well as his identity now. And it automatically knows that. Figuring out how to change that application or apply that into our world of access control and biometric is incredible.
It's interesting you're focusing on the convenience piece as opposed to the security piece. That's a whole nother layer of making sure that it's really easy to duplicate a lot of fobs and keys. It's not easy to duplicate your face as well. So
Absolutely.
there's a whole nother layer of, as costs keep coming down for facial recognition, making your building more secure, it's not just the convenience piece, but over time, that's just going to be a bigger layer of making sure that your building is secure.
It's funny, even, I was just talking to Chad about this yesterday because I don't feel the world is ready for facial recognition. That's what I said. I don't feel the world is ready for it. There's a company out of Australia that I work with called Verified Faces. There's a plug for you. Verified Faces, they do some really cool things. Biometric data on your face, it's a bunch of measurements and things that, and it integrates with some of the platforms we use. But, I haven't really heard anyone that's comfortable with it.
Define comfortable.
Well, Big Brother's watching.
Okay.
Do you want to have your face?
Yeah.
And so when I was saying this to Chad, to his credit, this was the first time ever he actually made some sense when he was talking. He said, how about every time you look in your phone? How about Google Photos, what he just mentioned, right?
Yep.
There's so many. You have a passport. Have you been to an airport lately?
Right.
Like I got into America 2 days ago.
Yep.
And I walked up, and there's a camera, and it says, look here. It says, please proceed.
Right.
That was it.
Yeah.
It's like, so if you're worried about, your biometric data being out there, I got news for you.
It's been there. Yeah.
Do you have a license? Do you have a passport? Do you ever plan on leaving your house?
No.
Like it's there. So getting over that comfort level is going to be a challenge. I don't feel that the general public is there yet because there is a lot of distrust, I think, just with government for sure these days, and and law enforcement. There's just not a lot of trust.
Well, we've had that pushback in our business as well around facial recognition. I don't want my face
Like your own guys.
Yeah, our own team. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the kind of conversation has been the same thing. How do you unlock your phone?
Yeah.
Where
That's
do
a really good analogy to
You look at it.
It's
Right.
what we have already accustomed ourselves to, and it's no different than your identity for driver's license or anything else. So now it's how do you really integrate that into your
How do you
functional
make
operation?
it's an opportunity. I don't have the answer to this one. I don't know how to do it yet, but it's certainly going to be impacting, and it is a trend that's coming.
Yeah.
Have you seen it pick up with your customers, and what sort of markets have you seen that in? We've only done it a couple times, but just random businesses.
I think no, we have not had major success with it.
Okay.
So but I think with any element, technology or product application inside of a small business, and especially in the security industry, one, you have to be comfortable and familiar with it first for yourself, and then you can start to offer it. So again, we're in that early phase of testing, adoption, and we have them on our facility, so we're testing it and getting comfortable with it. And once we see that application to come to fruition, then we'll start to be able to recommend that in the field.
The only application that we've had, and it's actually a buddy that has car dealerships actually back home. Just picture the scenario where a customer has been in the dealership, a camera recognizes the face, salesman talks to them, the salesman's tagged to that person. If that customer comes back in, the salesperson gets a notification on their phone saying, Tony Hokinson is back. He was looking at that, and basically their customer profile,
Yeah.
right? And so that is a real application that would make sense. It's not even necessarily a security thing.
Yep.
But people counters, another one. We use that in our shop, so I know how many people have been in there. We don't store the facial data, but we count unique visitors because that lets me know when should they be on lunch, when do we need more people in the shop, when it's the busiest day of the week. All these kind of things actually work for our business.
You just brought up a really valid point, and we just had a conversation.
Make a note on that. What time is this?
Wow.
We just had a conversation yesterday about feeling special,
Yeah,
right? Make me feel special. And
that's not what we were saying to each other, but
correct.
I know what you're talking about.
But we were, can you imagine walking into a car dealership and them saying, welcome back, Mr. Hokinson.
Yeah. How's little GD doing?
Right.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. And would you like to look at that that car again? Right, whatever.
Oh, Mr. Ligefeld, another Tesla.
Yeah. But because there are places that I go and they recognize you by your
Golf
face,
courses, man.
and they call you by your
Golf courses.
It is a totally different experience. So
Yes.
you want to talk about elevating customer expectations, customer experience?
Yes.
You start to implement those technologies. So we talk about it from making sure that the good people can get into the door and the bad people stay out of the door. But just utilizing that technology for an improved customer experience is incredible.
Forget the security aspect of it. Think about it for, yeah. I think that was my point. I don't really know.
No, that's what I said. I thought it was a
Did
good
I make
point.
that point?
Yeah. I was just underlining it for you.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
All right, next topic is access control related to facial recognition. This is a little bit of a older trend, but still something that for locksmiths listening or other security professionals, making sure that you're using access control, selling it to your customers, not being afraid of it, but embracing it. I think there's plenty of opportunities for locksmiths in the access control world. Something as simple as partnering with other integrators, doing their lock work. This is something that our business has been very successful with. There's a lot of people getting into the access control space that know absolutely nothing about door hardware. Be there as their consultants, help them get, provide the lock work, sell the lock work, install the lock work, and work with those partners and help them as they're embracing access control. I think as time goes on, access control is becoming more and more cost effective per door. And there's a lot more opportunities to add access control to different types of doors, which is another opportunity for us as locksmiths. We're getting into a lot of wireless locks, PoE locks.
Right.
And instead of now it being $4,000 or $5,000 to put access control on a door, you can sometimes do it for $1,000. So there's a lot of different openings that you can put access control on. Thirdly, for a locksmith in general, getting into the RMR world. A lot of IT companies are familiar with what RMR is, reoccurring monthly revenue. That is a game changer for your business. Yes. Yeah. Everything in the hardware world is very much so buy product, sell product. But everything in the IT world is very much so sell software as a service. And that is the way that consumers are getting used to buying from you.
Right.
If you buy Microsoft 365, Google Drive, OneDrive, you are used to paying a monthly fee. We're used to selling things as a
hit it and quit it.
Hit and quit it. Yep.
Yeah.
So a lot of locksmiths have started changing their business model to recurring monthly revenue, and I think it's very important. Access control is a great way to start with that. We're doing a presentation on this a couple days from now, and it's a really good avenue to make sure that I completely lost my train of thought.
Well, it's squirrel ran by and Tony noticed that.
That's the problem of having this recording in the middle of the open the floor. There, people are just
great.
I mean, you are a little bit of a celebrity. So
it is.
When you were talking about RMR, it's
signing
a way
people's programs earlier. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, you talk about RMR, and it's a way to have a consistent revenue flow.
Yes.
Right. Because as a service business,
Value builder for your business. Yes.
You're subjective to the ups and downs of your customer base. So it creates a consistent connection with the customer and providing an ongoing service.
Yeah.
The only thing I want to challenge you on that first thing. So a lot of times people talk about in our industry that they are doing access control.
Yep.
And that ultimately, if you unpack it, is they are installing strikes for an integrator.
Okay.
And in order to get to your third point of RMR, they've got to own the back end. And that's one thing that I don't think we've done a good job in the locksmith industry is adopting the back end. And we've kind of a lot of us have taken this mentality of, oh, we let the integrators or we let this company handle the back end. We just do the hardware. We just want to do the and you're missing out on an opportunity for growth and really valuable growth because you can own the entire experience versus just the hardware.
I completely agree. I think that one of the challenges with that is just the skill set that you have to acquire to do that. In order to go put hardware on a door, that's something I'm comfortable with. If you're not doing anything with access control, to me, it's a good way to at least get started in it and get familiar with it. I think a lot of locksmiths are doing that, but if they're not, good way to get started. I think another challenge with getting into access control is making sure now that you have that IT infrastructure, you have that low voltage understanding. And I guess what I'm going with that is that's a good way to get into the world if you're not already into it. But absolutely, I think the ultimate goal is, that's one of our main focuses of our business is growing within access control, because for locksmiths specifically, it's an extremely good way to differentiate yourself from your competitors. We deal a lot with low voltage companies that are subbing us out to do the lock work, and we can differentiate by making sure that we're doing the whole picture. Instead of call Lars to do the access control and call Chad to do the lock work, you're calling Assured Security, we can do it all. So
good plug for Assured Security.
Was this like a promo?
Well, if you're in Minneapolis, give Assured Security a call. We're one of the best.
Thanks, Lars.
Yeah, that was a promo. Maybe we can cut that and use that. I'm going to say something controversial here. People don't care about security.
I agree with you. They care about convenience.
Convenience, yes. So where access control is, fobs and mobile credential, whatever they be, it's convenience is what we're talking about here.
Yep.
Security is that grudge purchase that you wait till you get broken into.
Correct.
Before you increase your security. But if it's a pain in the ass to assign fobs or cards or whatever, that drives decision making. You will spend money to be less annoyed as opposed to that grudge. So that's the first thing. I'd say, we're moving towards away from a security focus to a convenience focus. And whatever product and service, whatever's going on in the world, moving towards that is going to certainly improve, your business. We talked about the customer experience, same thing. Second thing, capital budgets aren't a thing anymore. Capital budget, so everyone's on the same page here, is a lump sum chunk of money that goes towards a project, a big spend, an annual spend, as opposed to operating expenses which happen on the recurring, and that's where that subscription model comes from, and people are just more comfortable with it now. Since there's that movie company, what was it called, Netflix or something? They went to that model. Charging a little bit a month
Do you think
forever.
they're successful with that?
I don't know. Jury's still out on that, but moving to that model is certainly something we should consider. It's worked pretty well.
That's actually a really good analogy. This is a very classic analogy, but
That's two for the good guy.
Blockbuster versus Netflix, right?
Who?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Blockbuster is.
I thought he was going to try to explain who Blockbuster was for a second.
He's a young guy, right? Blockbuster. I'm glad you know that, Tony.
But that is
Parents told you about
traditional access control, non-cloud hosted, right? Blockbuster, that's going away.
No, Blockbuster, they rented movies on VHS.
Sure, yes.
it. Big Betamax guy, Tony was.
Thanks.
Yeah.
But if, the security industry might be slower moving than Netflix, but it is certainly going to get to the point somewhere where everything is going to be in the cloud, right? Everyone uses Netflix. Nobody can use Blockbuster anymore because they're out of business. So,
isn't there one left?
Maybe in Canada. You guys are a little bit behind up there.
Ooh,
wow.
Ouch.
One for
Tony.
Tony.
I would never say that about America.
Never. But anyways, basically, access control, do it in some way, shape, or form. If you're not doing a cloud-hosted version of access control, get into that. And look for new ways to position that to your customer, like Lars said. OpEx is going away. People are getting more comfortable, more familiar with operating budget. Sorry, CapEx is going away. OpEx, people are getting more familiar with that. So look for new ways to position your products and your solutions to customers, and access control is one that locksmiths, I think, can really differentiate themselves on due to their door hardware knowledge and expertise.
Social norms are moving away from businesses and people wanting to own an item and own the liability of an item. So that's where this massive shift from this capital, I want to buy this thing and then be responsible for it, versus I have to hand you over $100,000 for this thing, can I just pay you $2,000 a month ongoing? You own the liability of it, and you manage it, and then I'll just use it. And there's a big drive for this. That's why multifamily dwellings, multifamily housing is on the rise. Car ownership is on the decrease, because people can, I don't need a car all the time, and I don't want a liability of the car all the time and the insurance. I can just rent it when I need it. That is carrying over. That's been ongoing for the past 4 or 5 years. Now we're starting to see that carry over into these types of projects as well. And it's finally starting to fall into our industry. I think it's been that way in the IT managed services. It's been that way in HVAC. It's been that way in other service models for a long period of time. It's finally starting to creep its way into our industry. Now, our challenge, our opportunity, I guess, is how do we get it? How do we embrace it? How do we learn from the misses that these other industries have had, and be able to grow with it? Case in point, we're working an opportunity right now where there is a customer that wants to outfit an entire facility with new electronic locks. And it is a massive capital investment. And they don't necessarily want to lay out the dollars for that. So we put together a model for them to be able to have a moderate initialization fee to be able to get the thing onboarded. And then they showed us in their budget, we have space in our operating budget. We don't have space in our capital budgets. And as a fact, they told us that in order for them to get capital approval, they have to go through a comprehensive exercise, exhaustive exercise, to be able to take that opportunity to their investment partners to get approval for it.
Produce a business case.
If they can put it in their operating expenses, they make that decision locally.
Right.
So if we are looking to grow our businesses and our opportunities, how are we positioning ourselves, pitching it, and giving those resources to the appropriate people so that they can make those decisions from an operating
So you're
model?
essentially becoming a bank for them, in essence.
That is one way that you can look at it.
Yeah, a version of it. And, I'm going to jump into the commoditization of the world here in a minute, but, I wanted to, at its simplest form, we're relatively new to access control and convenience. I'm going to plug Brevo here and talk about they make it very simple for you. Anyone
Smile, Jenna's taking our picture.
Anyone interested in starting into access control, I'd definitely recommend Brevo, because they've laid out the pricing.
Yeah.
And it's pretty straightforward, because as we're talking about this, we're talking about capital budgets, but we gotta spread this over a period of time and amortize the cost, and right. Brevo does that stuff for you.
Yeah.
They've already figured it out, so that'd be definitely one. I'm going to shift gears here. I'm going to talk about commoditization of product.
Okay.
So, ironic, we're sitting here at a industry event that does showcase a whole bunch of new product. And this is not to say that there aren't new products coming out. There are new niche products coming out all the time.
Sure.
That are going to be those lead products. They're going to be highly expensive. Just look at the television industry, right? You look at a television, it's like, now there's 12K, right? It's 1,000-inch TVs. I'm exaggerating a bit here, Chad. Maybe it hasn't made it to the U.S. That was exaggeration. But the TV industry, and even the Apple is doing it, where they're just tweaking things a little bit, right? Sure. But all their new phones, their iPhone 16, it's $2,000 because it has a 10th camera on it, right? So there is niche there. For companies like us, it's pretty hard to do that with product. In fact, it's impossible. Yep. That's not what we do. And when I talk about commoditization, I'm just talking about the hardware is becoming a commodity. It's, whether it's your doorknob or that doorknob or this doorknob, whether it's gray or silver or kind of grayish silver, it's all really the same. It's really hard to differentiate your company and your service based on the products that you're selling, unless you're one of those, Apple, Google type of companies.
Yep.
So what I'm focused on and what I see as a trend in the industry is moving towards the service aspect and differentiating the service, where, one, it's gonna challenge us to think about customer convenience. making it easy to do business, because we just talked about convenience being the biggest thing. That's going to differentiate us more than the products that we sell. Sure. Because realistically, we can all sell the same thing. So it's a change of mindset. And I mean, soon enough, people are going to be able to buy anything that we sell on Amazon, if they can't already, right? And that margin and that dollar amount that we look at as a company coming from hardware is just going to continue to shrink. That's my belief.
Yes, absolutely.
And so we have to look at the services that we provide, and realistically, I think coming soon, and by soon I mean probably the next 5 years, more of our revenue is going to be coming from turning wrenches and the actual labor portion than the hardware portion.
Yep.
And that's where, we just talked about the recurring revenue. That will be a big portion of our revenue, but we have to look at differentiating our labor, training, creating the actual humans, because that's what's going to drive our profit and revenue, because I just don't see the hardware continuing to be a margin maker for us.
Yeah. So we have throwback to episode 3, I think, about human development.
Yes.
Human development.
You
don't know what that means.
You just referenced it, training the humans.
So, was there a point to this, or you just?
No, I was just making sure
that the human development came up again.
I think there's some people listening that may not be in the service industry. We have wholesalers, we have manufacturers that are in our industry.
Yep.
How do you see, I'm just interested to know, what do you see the future of that looking like? How do they differentiate? How does an Assa Abloy, a Brivo, how do they differentiate when all they're doing is selling products? Wholesalers, they're selling products to us.
Well,
so they're still going to have a play and a role here. How do you see that looking?
So manufacturing, I would say, is its own thing. That's the utilizing technology. I think where manufacturing in our industry really lags is the convenience to buy products. How much does this cost?
Yes.
Is one of the hardest questions to answer of any manufacturer, because they're like, well, you do this and it depends on this, and we do this and our part numbers, right? It's awful. Now, they need to focus, at least if I was in charge of that, I'd be focused on differentiating product and research and development and moving towards some of these trends, but focus more on convenience than anything, as we talked about. But also making it easier to do business with them. And you've heard that 1,000 times. What I mean is make it simple to the process. The process of getting your products to market, make it simple. You know why Amazon's successful? It's not because it's cheap.
Right.
It's because you click a button and it says, thanks for your order, we'll get it to you in a couple hours.
Right? Yeah.
Make it simple. Okay. Wholesale's same thing. Wholesale, they're selling commodities. Generally speaking, they're not making the product and they're not installing the product. They're that middleman. How does wholesale be effective? Well, they're convenience.
Yeah,
That's what they focus on.
Amazon's large wholesaler.
Exactly. And we talked about this yesterday. And I think it was Al was talking about the making you feel special, right? Relationships drive business. So if I'm a wholesaler in the industry, nothing drives business more than a relationship. Why are we here? Why are we at this conference right here, the Assa Abloy conference? I can tell you why I support Assa Abloy and why I'm here. So I've made friends with Ben.
Yeah.
Ben Saltz worked with Assa Abloy for years. He was my buddy.
Yeah.
Why did I sell Assa Abloy's doorknobs instead of somebody else's doorknobs?
Relationships.
Because Ben was my buddy. That's all there is to it. So focusing on relationships is probably where we need to go. The more related we are to commodities, the more you got to focus on relationship.
Yep. Why do you put so much value in those relationships?
Why do I?
Yeah. Like what does that bring you?
Well, when for me, it was just what's the difference between selling that doorknob or that doorknob? It's the exact same thing in all the way. But this guy's my friend. He's my buddy, and so if it helps him.
Yeah, to me, there is a service component to that. Like if you know somebody, if I have a relationship with this vendor, and I can call them when I have an issue, I know there's a trust there, right?
Good point.
I know that when I run into a problem,
you can send a text message and he's like,
take care of this. Yes.
Let me help you out.
Right.
Correct.
Where when I'm dealing with Amazon, yes, they have convenience, but there's no relationship there.
Sure.
If you can bring me value by helping me when I have a challenge, that's hard to put a price tag on.
Good point.
And it's a wild society shift, because I think years ago everything was what they refer to belly handshake,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
And then it got very.
Belly to belly.
You've never heard that before?
No.
Oh.
Okay. Belly to belly. Go
Shaking
on.
hands, kissing babies?
Yeah. I mean,
You never heard that
it
either?
fits.
Yeah, I've heard kissing hands, shaking bait.
Don't kiss hands and shake babies. That'll put you in a
That was an
different-
honest mistake.
Anyway,
There's a reason
no, I've
that we
never
have
heard
kids and
belly
we
to
don't.
belly.
Yeah,
belly.
it's the relational aspect.
All your life, the B2B, did you think that stood for belly to belly?
It's an ultra. Anyways,
I mean-
moving on.
Okay.
Here's the situation. That was a very big drive 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And then everything turned into big corporate. We need to be professional. We need to have very focused, very sanitized interactions with each other.
Right.
It changed, and now you're starting to see that whole thing turn back around because the Amazons of the world, where they are convenient.
Yeah.
Who am I dealing with?
Right. Mhm.
Right. When I really, really, really have a problem, who am I supposed to call? And especially in our world, and in any world where you're selling products and goods and services, having that responsibility or that individual relationship can solve a lot of
Especially
problems.
the larger purchases.
Yeah.
Like in our world, if somebody's going to drop $500,000 or $1 million on a key system or an access control system or something that's going to last a year, you're really going to buy that on Amazon?
Yeah.
And then you realize, I have a problem. What do you do?
Yeah.
This is getting a little bit into sales, but you brought this up yesterday with being present, right? If you have somebody coming in and you're present and you're there once a month and you have that consistency, I'm going to be far more likely to work with you and do business with you. And that's a good way to differentiate our industry from our competitors, is being a little smaller. There's a lot of large companies out there, making sure that we're going in and working with our
More
customers
time
and
belly to
being
belly.
there. And sure, more time belly to belly. We'll leave that to Chad. But that's a good way for us to differentiate ourselves.
Yep.
If we can go in, be present with our customers, making sure that just because we walk in the door, they may not buy something from us, but understand their needs and be there.
Getting
for when
that
they
belly
need it.
out there. Getting that belly out there ready for it.
Specialized
He's not going to let
skills.
you live that one down.
Specialized skills are another another focus for us in our industry right now. Trends, and we can talk about access control and all that stuff. But let's think really in terms of. I've had these conversations internally in our business recently. What certifications do we need from a network and IT perspective? Because those are some things that you might have to outsource. Or one of the situations you come into a customer environment, and you're bringing in a IT-based solution for access control camera systems, locking hardware. I need to have a knowledge and expertise in the IT world to be able to access that, or I'm having to now interject a third or fourth party into solving that problem for integration or implementation. The other one's fabrication. That is a skill to wrap into your business, because now you can solve those problems in real time. You're not having to outsource it or rely on somebody else to solve those problems. Obviously, high security is a subset of a skilled knowledge that you would need to continue to grow. And then two other ones that I really was thinking about was building and fire code. Understanding that, and having even an expert, somebody that's been certified, qualified, knows that, can go out and do fire door inspections, relabeling, but
It's a
understanding
good source of recurring revenue right there as well.
correct, and understanding building code as a whole, because you might be putting wrong application, wrong, and oftentimes we will rely on an outside individual to take that responsibility, and they may not. We're making it's too segregated of a decision. And then finally, spec writing. This is a skilled set that very few people in our industry have, and it's difficult to resource it. But if you have the knowledge base on understanding spec writing, you can implement that in your bid opportunities, because you understand how to impact the spec.
Yeah, and all that. Everything you're saying there just keeps driving convenience home for me, because we're really talking about that one-stop kind of solution for all of this. And that's we started recently. We've been working with a big telecom company in Canada, and going through some of the quoting that they do, and they specifically exclude electric strikes
Yeah.
They specifically exclude locking hardware. And then when I was talking to them, like, oh, you do that stuff? Right? So we can work with designers, with the architectural hardware consulting, we can bring that whole package in. Really?
Yeah.
Right? And that's just so convenient for them because, there's one neck to wring.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. All right.
You never heard that either?
I have,
Oh, okay.
but it's
Just
quite,
in Minnesota, they don't say that stuff.
Yeah.
It'd be one fist or one face to shake your fist at.
sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned specialized skills, learning IT skills. I do think that's absolutely important. I think it's also really important for locksmiths and the security professionals to lean into the fact that, like you said, the door hardware, low voltage. In school nowadays, everyone's learn coding, learn IT, learn all this. Everyone's doing that. Everyone's going to college to learn business and IT. And there's this whole segment of trades that people are ignoring. And I think even in our industry, electronics, everyone's, what can I do with the cloud? What can I do with this? And while we need to be doing that, I think there's a lot for us to provide value on with knowing the basic stuff. Like knowing locksmithing, knowing door hardware, knowing everything that goes in and around a door, making sure that you're understanding the door frame, the handicap operator. And that skill set, there's a lot of people in our industry that are getting close to retirement. And that skill set's not it's not becoming more abundant. It's only getting less. And so make sure that you as a company are differentiating and providing an opportunity for employees to come in and learn and grow and learn these skills that others are ignoring.
So that's a really good segue into the final topic around DIY.
Yes.
But before we get to that,
Oh, thanks.
Google defines belly to belly in sales as a term used to describe when a salesperson meets with a customer in person to get to know them
Well, it's
better.
pretty self-explanatory. It's just maybe you don't stand quite belly to belly. Like that's a little close. In Minnesota, we stay at least, a couple feet away. We don't want to get too close and comfortable.
So,
with people.
bring us home, Tony.
All right,
DIY.
do it yourself. I think there's a lot of this is a strong trend in our industry. You've seen it in alarms for the last 10 years or so. Companies like Simply Safe, Ring. There's a lot of do-it-yourself out there. Locksmithing is getting more that way. We've seen it in access control even, to tie back to our access control segment. You're seeing companies come out with easy to use, easy to install locks. I was just at my in-laws the other day and my father-in-law put a new lock on the door, right? It's pretty basic. You can go to the hardware store, you can buy a residential lock, you can install on the door. I think there's a couple areas of opportunity there. One, there are people that are going do-it-yourselfers, but there are also people that are focusing on specialization. I think a lot of the buzzword out there is focus at what you're good at. And although I can sit there and go put my lock on my door, well, I can maybe do that, but I can also focus my time on my business, focus my time on doing things I like to do, and I might just hire that out of convenience. You mentioned convenience earlier, and even though I can do it myself, is that the smartest thing for me to be doing? A lot of business coaches out there will talk to you about that, and so I think although do-it-yourself is becoming a trend, I think that it's not going to take over everything. Also, I think, like you said, there is a way to differentiate yourself with the service you are providing. And focus on those specialty services. I don't know many people that are going to go and rip out a door and frame themselves. I don't know many people that are going to go and install a handicap operator themselves. So there are certain things that people can start to do themselves, but as an industry and as a business, if you focus on those things that you can't do yourself, it gives you a leg up against your competition.
Yeah, I think you've basically just rattled off, the commoditization of goods.
Yes. Sure.
Right? That's exactly what we were just talking about. If that specialization of labor and the service. I've said many times, talking about our company, we're a service company that also happens to sell doorknobs. But we're a service company. That's what we focus on. I challenge anyone, go look at your Google reviews. Look at our Google reviews. I think we have about 700 Google reviews, most of which are 5 stars, and none of them say, Gary, hung the hell out of that door. That door is so square and
but Gary does.
pretty. He does hang the hell out of that door, yes. But that's not what people care about. Gary was a professional. Gary was super nice. They called me. So the focus is on that convenience, and it's how you make people feel. Right. It's nothing to do with the products and service. So the DIY market, is something I don't even really consider. I think if you want to be part of that commoditization game, you got to go low cost. You got to go. You got to be competitive in a different area. So understanding where you fit in that market is I think is the crux of this.
Yeah, position yourself and market towards the people that don't want to do it themselves.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, there is a subset of any market that there are going to be DIY. And just understand you have two options. One, figure out how to adapt your service model to them.
Right.
Yep.
Or realize that they are not your ideal customer.
Correct.
And go find ways to find people that actually do need your
Put your
service.
belly somewhere else.
This has been an awesome conversation. So again, we're here in Orlando, Florida, for an industry conference that we are all participating in together. We do this to continue to grow our knowledge, grow our experience, and to continue to grow our businesses together. So we're moving on to episode 5.
Oh, what are we talking about?
Well,
That's the question for you, Tone.
yeah.
You're the
You're the episode.
you're the episode number
curator.
guy. Come on, Tone.
Come on.
You have one job, man.
Yeah.
It's putting me on the spot. What do we want to talk about?
Well,
when are we doing it?
On
Where?
our list, next is financial metrics, or the other one would be sick of AI, figuring out how you actually can use AI instead of just hearing about it.
I don't like either of those.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll pick something
I
different,
guess
Tony.
Tone-
Financial metrics too similar to KPIs.
Okay.
AI is I'm not ready for that.
Okay.
Got to use it a bit more.
So we'll debate it a little more and then
Okay.
come up with the topics for next time. How about
This
that?
is amazing content we're putting together as
Is it?
usual.
Well, you just kind of wrap it.
Thankfully, he can cut most of this. So.
Nah, we'll leave it in there.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you very much for joining us today. You can find out all of the information and more about us and the show notes from today's episode on our website. It's unlockedpodcast.com. We'll see you next time.